ends it.
Hey everybody, just a quick message from Bonkers Network. We would like to remind everybody that certain topics of discussion may not be comfortable for all listeners. Certain viewpoints may not reflect those of our partners, sponsors, affiliates, our hosts, or that of our guests. We would like to encourage everybody to keep a respectful and open climate of discussion for all topics, no matter how disturbing they may be. So viewer discretion is advised.
You know this world has gone insane. It is absolutely no secret. But tonight, Saturday night, you are about to experience the true measures of what that insanity can bring you. Tonight, you are about to see Ball and Bonkers, the one-of-a-kind show that delves deep into the world with no holds barred. Now, meet your hosts, Dakota Franson, specialist of the strange, and Christopher Mule, the UFO fanatic. Now, give it up, and let's see what these two idiots can bring you.
Welcome, everybody. My dear host has been abducted by aliens just as we were going live. Where did you go?
I hit the damn wrong button.
See, right. On you go, do the introduction then. Come on.
All right. So I know it
Terrible.
kills.
Can you train
fucking...
them? Here you go.
You froze again.
Now y'all killed the food. Ladies and gentlemen. This is such a weird way to introduce a fucking show about Nazis.
I know.
So
I know. That's
last couple of shows we've had Aaron on. Things got weird, and it seemed like it was a highly requested topic that we go deeper into occultism and Nazis, and just going into some of the war stories, because granted, what they did was absolutely horrible, and the fact that there's people that are trying to recreate what Hitler's forces did to this day still being done, and there's unfortunately people who seem to think that it's okay. The atrocities that being done are absolutely horrifying, but nevertheless, there's the brutality, the ingenuity, and the lore behind the SS itself makes it a fascinating subject, regardless of your stance.
Yeah.
So tonight, Chris and I have been doing some research, and trust me, Chris, doing his usual.
So Teletubby, isn't he? He's like a Teletubby. And we're also joined by Aaron. It's like the three amigos. We should have their Mexican hats on, you know.
You mean a sombrero?
Aye.
I don't know with this Hispanic church that lives like literally right next door to me. That might not be fly too well.
I'll be fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I will show you the people we will be talking about tonight. And obviously, this is a very sensitive subject that we're going to be getting into. We're going to be talking about Auschwitz. We're going to be talking about the Jews. We're going to be talking it wasn't just the Jews that the Germans killed. It was people with learning difficulties. It was everything that didn't fit with the Germans. Now, here we go. These are the notorious bunch. I think I got every one of them there. Do you think I got everyone there? That's all of them.
The major players.
Yeah, well, we've got Goebbels, we've got Hitler there, you know, and you got to remember, guys, these guys are probably in hell right now. Hopefully they are, you know, but for the things that they did. But without further ado, do you want to jump into that, Dakota? Al?
I don't know. It's like it could seem like all the stuff you research could easily lead into what I researched, and Aaron, just potpourri. I don't know.
Where would you like to
I'm
start
just
off, Alan?
potpourri.
I don't know. I don't know why I just said
I just hopefully we might be joined by an export. Oh God, is that I can't pronounce things either
Export?
tonight. We might be joined tonight by Mike the Naked Bigfoot, and he's an expert when it comes to the occult and stuff like that. But sadly, he's not very well. So if you're watching, Mike, get better, man. You know, get
Hey,
rest.
come on,
and
you know how
hopefully-
much hanging out with us makes you feel better.
I know. Plus, we like to hear all your crazy stories about how the devil worshippers chased you into the woods and stuff like that. We love stuff like that. But anyway, if you can't make it, you can't make it, friend.
Yeah, we'll understand, man. And trust me, I will make sure that we will start selling your book whenever it comes out in
Yes.
the Bald Bonker store, because you've got some stories, man, that only make sense if you were high on drugs.
So, before we start the show, which picture should we pick to start off the show? Dakota, bring up the first picture that you have uploaded.
Are you sure? Because
let's dive into the game. We might be here tonight, guys, for about 2 hours, but let's go.
Well, first off, it's probably best that we establish a little bit of background as to what drove Nazis to some of the conclusions they made in feeling that the occult could have, and likely did for a little bit, help assist them in the war. Because you got to admit, when you look at history, by all accounts, the Germans were annihilating it for a while for reasons still unknown to this day. Granted, we have, if I'm not mistaken, just off the top of my head, the timelines for when certain documents are allowed to be declassified are running short when it comes to this type of field. So there's going to be a whole slew of information that's going to come out, depending on if the government officials in charge of that information deem it okay to release. If there's things we're going to get into tonight that are still heavily covered up. We know about them, but the truth about it is perhaps even stranger. And some of the people we've had previously on the show may actually help answer a few questions and put some names to faces as to what the hell the Nazis were dealing with.
I mean, the Nazis were bad, man. And first of all, with this, I'd like to say, Anne, what is that with your face, man? You look like you're out the future with a kind of weird, kind of blue, before MD thinks that you're an alien or something.
I know, it hits certain lights hit his eyes just right. It looks like it has the reptilian blink to him. I was just like,
I know. Don't show your reptilian arm yourself. What dare they do? Don't they do until we've recruited the others? Anyway,
it's just a screen that I have for my face.
That's cool. That I'll need to get one. I need to get a big one for myself. So Dakota, off you go. Let's start the show.
We start this ending. Well, look, I don't know. There's so much here, Chris. Why don't you just go ahead and pick?
Right, I tell you,
there's too much here. Let's start with you because going from you to me is probably a natural.
Well, I tell you what, we'll jump for the werewolf thing to the Wolfenstein Castle. Then you can take it for there, right? And then I'll come to the bit where I was talking about what they were doing with the sacrifice with the Jews and stuff, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the first picture. What's your thoughts on that, Anne? What's your thoughts on that, Dakota? Ladies and gentlemen.
The Nazis like this doggy style.
Yeah. Did you know this is actually, this drawing was done by a Russian soldier, 1943, fighting in the front, right? Now there was reports that this is an actual fact. There was reports that the Nazis were doing crazy genetic experimentation, as we all know, as it's came out in the news over the years. Come on, they were doing mad experimentation on the Jews, right? We know that, right? And not just the Jews, people with disabilities and stuff like that. People that had like weird growths and stuff like that. Now the soldiers were coming across these other soldiers with like Nazi uniforms, like insignias, SS insignias, and they look like werewolves, right? Now, I don't know if it's true, but come on, I mean, maybe it is. I mean, I find it very interesting about how these stories started. Now, I'm going to jump for this to the Wolfenstein Castle. Would you like to bring it up, Dakota?
Okay. That's probably
Because I think
not
this is where this ties in. Yeah, the transition
All
is
right,
right.
we'll try to let you explain your mindset because
No, just bring it up.
all right.
Bring it up.
Like Aaron
Right.
mentioned, a lot of people became aware of some of the Nazi lore when it came to the Wolfenstein games, especially some of the
Yes.
newer ones.
Yes.
As it turns out, I thought it was I actually started bursting into laughter when I found this information. And there's a book on it. It's called I believe it's called Castle Wolfenstein and the Beings of Light. We have it available on the Bald Bonkers store. It talks about, it has Hitler right on the front. This is actually a picture of the castle here. Now, granted, my thought process when you think of a bunch of smart-ass Marines heading to the front lines, they hear about this place. That's probably where the name Wolfenstein came from.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The Vril societies, the Thule societies, they also had close ties with the Golden Dawn.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
So nevertheless, Crowley is another full set of videos in himself.
Oh yeah, oh Jesus, hi. Can I
go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, right, where I'm getting off with the wolf, right, is maybe there is fiction involved in this, right? Maybe there is fiction involved in this wolf, right? But look at Germany, look at Hitler. He was mad in genetic manipulation. This is where I'm going, right? This is what he wanted. You ever heard of Germania? That's what he wanted to turn Germany into. Germania. He wanted to have a wide forest, extinct animals that he's created. You know where I'm going with this, right? Now, I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think they were in contact with a certain type of race. Throughout the research that I was doing, an extraterrestrial race, which people think, oh, this is getting crazy, but it's no. Wait till we show you some of the stuff that Dakota's got, and wait till we show you some of the locations that were used by the Nazis, and yeah, I'll make you kind of understand. So I'll jump back to Dakota. Dakota, when you go, my friend.
All right. Now, naturally, this is such a dense topic that we could do a whole special species. When you go into a lot of the lore, they said that the Nazis had some sort of contact with beings in advanced civilization, inner Earth society, things like that, where they're talking about essentially the Agarthans. There's the star system Aldebaran comes up a lot within the Taurus constellation. A lot of it, now granted, there's some people who believe that the story behind this woman is completely fabricated. However, there's some very genius storytelling. A lot of people who are aware of the higher powers that had major influence at the time. We have this woman. Chances are this is the woman to blame for a lot of Nazi rituals, their fascination with UFOs. Now, Hitler, he was an avid animal lover way before any of this. Granted, like you said, he did also mess around with methamphetamines a lot. So that obviously could have easily clouded his judgment. This woman here...
There's actually Mike in the room.
Oh,
hey, Mike.
Oh, Mike. Yeah, I saw Mike popping in earlier. Maria wasn't actually a trans medium born out of Croatia. There's some people who believe she had close connections with Nikola Tesla. Both individuals said to have UFO connections. Tesla, in fact, there's some FBI files that say that there are people who worked with Tesla who would see UFOs come and go out of his laboratory all the time. Readily available documents that anybody can access. Maria over here is responsible for the UFOs that Nazi regime was trying to build. She provided the schematics out of trance sessions. You may remember when I showed this out of my little weird trance session that I'm still working on a translation. Well, this is her as well. A lot of the dialect matches ancient Sumeria, which is said that a lot of ancient aliens' influence still linger. A lot of their language still lingers in some languages today. I've noticed that when it comes to the man language, stuff that's closely associated with the Galactic Federation, a lot of the melody behind the language sounds a lot like modern day Samoan.
Yes.
Stuff you would hear out of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this woman founded her own society, basically the Vril Maidens. They believe that the long hair. All right, where did I put that damn picture? Damn it, Chris. We gotta find a different organization system, man. There we are. Of course, all the troubles of Nazi Germany can be traced to beautiful women.
I know.
They
Same as the
believe
problems. That's
that-
what it is. That's what causes everything. That's that. We need to make them know how beautiful women everywhere. That's that. World peace will be formed.
These women were heavy feminists, and they also didn't like the short hairstyles that were pretty popular during that time frame. They also believe, and this is something that is shared with a lot of indigenous cultures, that the long hair actually assisted their psychic abilities. What's special is that about Maria in particular, she had close ties with Himmler. She was Hitler himself is allegedly called her the daughter of the devil because of the information she was providing. And here's the thing. It's also stated that she also knew Nazi Germany would fall.
Yeah.
Her death, if you look up her death, it's simply listed as 1945, the year she went missing.
Yeah, or she went back home.
No, she was born in Croatia. Her birthday was actually Halloween of 1895.
But you see what I'm going to say about this, right? The Nazis, especially the SS, they were all blonde and blue-eyed, right? Basically, right? That was their kind of thing. They all thought you had to be pure. You had to be tall, strong. Any defects whatsoever, well, you weren't part of the plan. You were sent away to the gas chamber.
The Aryan race. Well, blonde hair, blue eyes, physically fit. This is a drawing from Get to the Stars. It's a book by our friend Elena Denon. This is the Ahio. It's a ethnic group of the Lyran race, which has a colony in the Aldebaran star system.
Yes.
Though it is believed that the ones that Maria was talking to look a little bit more like this. They're Genosians. The story behind these guys is that they took up refuge in a colony in the Aldebaran system that Elena's book even says these are the ones that Maria was talking to. After their home world that exists between Mars and Jupiter during the modern where the asteroid is. Where the asteroid
it's happening
belt
to you
sits.
now. Yeah.
Where the asteroid belt sits. It said that there may have been a planet there at one point that absolutely got pulverized. This is acknowledged by modern science.
Yeah.
That planet may have been destroyed when there was a gray invasion. And these guys got out of there, took refuge near Aldebaran. These guys are direct descendants of Anunnaki, which tend to look more like the engineers from Prometheus.
Did they actually? Yeah.
And it is said that when Maria disappeared, she left a letter. I've been trying to find a higher resolution image of this alleged letter so I could take a look at it for myself. A letter was left behind saying no one is, with the last sentence saying no one is staying here. It is believed she went to Aldebaran, to where she would later link up and move on to the Pleiades. She and her fiance both went missing around the same time.
That is extremely interesting. Arden, would you like to say anything?
So this is, I'm gonna backtrack.
Mhm.
When we were talking about when you guys were talking about the genetic experiments,
Mhm.
what came to my mind was the first recorded genetic experiments were with the Anunnaki, and and I think I don't think that genetic experimentation ever stopped. I think that
Mm.
it continued in the background, and I'm just wondering if the Nazis kind of when they were doing their genetic experimentations, if that brought it back to the forefront again. If there's some connection there.
Yeah.
Likely.
That's where, like, see that castle that I showed you. So I'm going to bring it up again with the kind of art on the walls that they use now for art. I read stories about this place and I didn't believe it. Right? There was guards that worked at this place. 1943, 1942, 1943. They've talked, and there'd be great trainloads of Jews would turn up to the location, right? All go into the castle and never come out again, right? So I'm going to show you this, right? Which I'm thinking, right? You're thinking, right? It's the Anunnaki. They use the humans as slaves. So what happens? Right? What happens if the Nazis had a deal to supply them with slaves? Think about it.
Continue the
Well,
experimentation.
Or experimentation, right? This castle here, where is it? Where is it? I have it loose enough in here. This is
let's see, we gotta
Wilsenberg
find
Castle.
our new system here.
I know, we're going to have to get into this, right? Here's the Nazis there. That's the castle, right? Now I'm going to show you what this castle looks like from above in maps. Now, the castle still remains today, but the rest of it's been totally destroyed by the Allies after the war. There's Mike in the room there.
Oh my!
Hey, Mike. I'll just take it off there. Hey, Mike, I'm just going to show this castle, and then we'll jump to you, my friend. So that was the castle. Now this is it from the air. Now, just tell me what you see. Do you not find that the layout of that castle from the air looks weird? Now, maybe Mike can help me in a minute with this, right? Because here we have the castle again, right? And we have this in the centre now. There's been told that there was a gateway there. There was a gateway there that they could open at a certain time of year where these entities or whatever they were, they would come and visit, right? And this is what I've read. They would come and visit, they would communication through. Now it all rings back to the Black Sun. Here we go. The Black Sun, right? That's what it looked like but obviously before it was turned into like a museum. It's a museum now. It's used. I think this is a better picture here. That's the Black Sun again. Here we go here. That's what it was now. You see this? You see the center section here? There used to be they said it was like a metal gateway. Imagine it. It was all metal, and it disappeared at the very end of the wars because the US military were the first ones to this castle. It just disappeared. You can see it's been ripped out the ground, right? But the question I ask is, what happened to the Jews that went to this castle? Where did they disappear to? I mean, there was thousands of them took to this castle, and none of them ever came back. And then it points to the Black Sun. Maybe Mike can help me here. Mike, what can you tell me about that?
It's a very old symbol that was equated to one of the pretender races that the Germans. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a different angle than the alien connection.
Yeah. Yes. Go. Yes. Go.
One of the things in it that Hitler and his followers and the different cults and organizations did is that they were seeking out remnants of some of the older civilizations and races that predated Germanic life, predated the Germans and Germanic life in general, that their ancestors had interacted with earlier. And one of them was the Vargar. And that particular, for those who have never heard me talk about the Vargar, it's one of my favorite topics. Vargar in German is an old German word meaning wolf.
Yeah.
And they are the wolf people that came from that area of the world. Very old race that predates a lot of civilizations, including the Germanic civilization. But the center of their power at one point was in parts of Germany and north of Germany. And the Black Sun, and you could see the runes around that as well, and the geometric aspects of it. Yeah. That was actually that was actually supposedly to be one of their symbols.
Yeah.
Because they lived two lives. They lived a life during the day as a person and at night as a wolf. Because they didn't hunt during the day, they only hunted at night. And the Germans saw the remnants of their civilization, not realizing right away that they were still, and they still existed in a smaller format than what they used to exist as. There are much smaller groupings of them. And they were known to be traveling with a lot of the gypsy populations that went around through there too, which, if you know your history well, the gypsies are one of the populations that were decimated towards the end of World War II. They were done that for a reason. They actually, the gypsies, they actually harbored a great many of the various races and peoples that the Germans were looking for, both to experiment on or perhaps make deals with for power.
Yeah.
And they went seeking the Vargar through the gypsies at first, knowing that some of the Vargar, through the rumors, some of the Vargar still lived amongst the gypsies and preyed amongst the gypsies as well. Not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y. The original deal. The original deal that they struck with them. They wanted, of course, they need blood, they need food. And it's my understanding and my belief that a lot of the Jews that you were talking about that were brought to that castle,
never seen again.
Well, they were used as food.
It's interesting because that castle had a crematorium, but it could only take like 4 at a time. But it would imagine that was like a feeding room then, in theory.
Yeah, they would demand that because at the height of the Vargar civilization, they had human beings that actually worshipped them, that actually paid homage to them and fed their children to them for favors. So it helped make them the arrogant race that they were later to become, that they deserved worship. But that's my belief, because later on really when they were doing some of the major experimentations, they were injecting a lot of their soldiers. They were supposedly injecting them with wolf's blood, which I believe was Vargar blood, trying to strengthen their soldiers, especially when they saw what was coming towards it. They saw that the war was going to end badly for them. They were doing their best to make a soldier that'd be stronger and more powerful to be able to go out and kill and try to turn the war effort around for them. And they sacrificed a lot of their soldiers to those experiments. A lot of their soldiers.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, that's
I know. I went in a completely different direction.
No, it's not that.
Oh, we were hoping for it.
We were hoping for it because it wasn't just the alien stuff we were talking about, obviously, because of UFOs and stuff. There obviously is a supernatural side to it. But can I ask you something, Mike? Do you think that these wolf people, these Wagner, do you think they're still about today?
Oh, they do. They migrated to, they don't have the civilization they used to have. They have not found in the groups that they found. But I believe that they have made their way here to the United States, to the New World, when the immigrants, during the Great Immigration times, they are predators and they followed their food. They eat people exclusively. and they followed their food source to the new world. I mean, it's brand new hunting grounds for them. And it's
Yeah.
also what I suspect, and some of you out there in YouTube land have heard me say this before, that a lot of people who see what they believe to be, what they call the dog man, they're actually seeing a Vargar that's out there. It's not a
That
dog.
is-
We need to
It's
get that
something
kind of back.
much, much older and much more primal and much more intelligent than all of us put together. And capable of great compassion to their own kind, and great cruelty and ferocity towards their food, which is us.
See, I found this picture. And this is in a lot of like Nazi memorabilia. This picture's here. We were talking about this at the start. I want your opinion on this. What's your thoughts? Because that was in this castle. That was one of the pictures that was found by an American soldier.
I can't make that out well.
Can you?
My
Can you
eyesight
not see it?
sucks tonight.
Dakota,
Yeah, my
can you
eyesight
explain
sucks tonight.
You've got
It looks like a bunch of inhuman things
yeah.
having
Well,
some great ceremony.
Yeah, there was pictures like that all around the castle that was found. There was also where is it?
You had these
Find it.
societies, these occult societies that were going out trying to find evidence of the old races that were there. That's
That
an
was
old
found
symbol
in the-
right there.
Yeah,
That's an
that
old
was
witch's
found-
mark right there. Yeah.
yeah.
That's an old witch's mark right there. That gets used a lot. It also gets broken down into its component pieces too, because you have the wheel in the center, which is a wheel of fire that holds all of it together.
Mhm.
And
then
that
we have
reference, you see that motif that's on that references Doringus Nablungen, which is the German composer Wagner turned that into an opera. Well, Hitler had him turn it into an opera. And Doringus Nablungen actually is filled, which is the ring of the Nibelungs, also known as the ring cycle. It's what I mean. A lot. He considered it he didn't consider it legends and stories. Hitler didn't, and his people. They considered it as an actual history, a factual history. And Doringus Nablungen actually had other races, other creatures all through it, as well as the main focus, which was the Aryan race at the time. But it was also filled with elves and dwarves, but not the kind of elves and dwarves we're thinking of. Beast men, you name it.
Yeah.
He saw that as history, and he had these organizations, these groups go out and try to find remnants of their civilizations.
That's right, he did because Hitler he sent a lot of people out to the Middle East to try and find the Grail, obviously, and to find the Spear of Destiny and to find other artifacts, which is very interesting. I mean, it's like when we were talking at the start about how he used genetic manipulation. He wanted, like, is it Germania? He wanted his own country with his own kind of animals. He wanted to, like, genetically modify, like, bears and bring back things that went extinct.
Exactly.
It makes
The things from their legends, and they weren't legends. They were actual historical documents to him. It was facts. And he wanted them to return all this stuff back and return their culture back to what it was.
That is absolutely amazing. But Mike, where do you keep all this knowledge, by the way? Curiosity, do you have a big hard drive or something like that?
Well, I'd have to explain to you about the deal I made a long time ago.
Dakota, would you like to say it, man?
Deal for supernatural knowledge. Let me just get a pen and paper here.
Where to go to? Have you got like a contact number or anything like that?
Do I need to sacrifice, my sisters? Because I'll willingly do that.
Wow.
I have 11. I have plenty to go.
Oh my god.
But as I like
Oh,
to say during what the fuck paranormal chat, yes, I did
yeah.
say that out loud. What I
You like
like
to
to
say
say
it. You're
on that
not
is
adult.
that's a story for another time.
Well, everybody, that's
Oh,
a story for
that's
another
right.
time, you know. Everybody has to drink. Aaron, come on, you get a drink then. You have to have a drink with you, man.
There you go.
Everybody in the chat will even be doing the same. Come on. But I've
So
actually
I had to tie it to that, and that's a story for another time.
oh
So
Jesus, he went and said it
Oh,
again.
son of a bitch. So, Aaron, as
In-
you are just being influenced to the naked Bigfoot legend,
Yes.
there is a drinking game associated whenever he comes up.
Yes, it's quite fascinating because he did a story the other night there, and I think everybody at the end it was pissed because everybody
It's
was
meaning
drinking.
drunk for those of you Americans.
Yes, Americans. Yes, Americans. No, there's a place that I want to ask you about, Mike. Actually, and it's perfect for you here. I've heard so much about this castle. I think
Get
it's
your
in
kids away.
Czechoslovakia. It was used by the Nazis, and it's meant to have like a portal to hell. And I know what your thoughts on hell is and all that, and demonics and demons and that. But it's I think you'll recognise the castle. It's Huska Castle in Czech, and it's meant to is the portal to hell. It's meant to be in it. And I know your obviously your beliefs and demons and stuff
well,
like that.
and during this Nablungen, which is again, I have to always reference that text over and over again tonight. There was an underworld. There was an underworld.
Yeah.
There were things that lived in this nether world and that story that could grant favors to you if you provided if you gave them what they asked for, which was a correct sacrifice. But anything they gave you though was always cursed when they gave it to you. You'd get what you wanted, but you would learn to regret it later on. You would live to regret it later on. That was always the warning with dealing with these creatures from the netherworld in that story. So I can see them trying to wheel and deal if they found some of the ancient locations of where these portals were at originally, as they were told within that. They also the other story they love to follow as well was the Laid de Earl King, which was the song of the Earl King, and that dealt with creatures that came from the other world. It actually explained to you exactly how to call them up and how to deal with them, and how to make deals with them. And that's something that Hitler's people, his various groups and societies he brought under his wings, were very familiar with that text. Der Laid de Earl King. If I'm
going to have to
saying
look
it
that
right
up.
in
I'm going to
German.
have to look that up.
But when you look up the Song of the Earl King, it's utterly fascinating. The Song of the Earl King. So
I'm going to be doing that tonight. So if I get possessed by a crazed creature, I can who to phone is Mike. I say, listen, you can go and play with Mike instead. You prefer him, you know. I'm just kind of born, you know. But a question that I've got for you, Mike, and I know you've got theories in this. Hitler, the war was going so well for him, right? And then it was like overnight something happened. It was like everything just went pear-shaped. Do you think he had deals that went wrong?
I think when they made the deal, when they were able to discover these otherworldly entities and made these deals, they didn't heed the warning that everything comes at a cost. And I think that's what happened. They got what they wanted, but then they got what they didn't want. They got smacked down.
Yeah.
Also, I believe they couldn't keep up with the sacrifices. They couldn't. Well, not just people they would sacrifice. They couldn't keep up. They didn't have enough people to keep up with the sacrifices and up with the various rituals that they were doing as well. Because when the war started to turn, when a lot of his, not the infantrymen, but more of some of his lesser higher ups, they started to have doubt. And the one thing you never do to entities that you make deals with was begin to lose faith in them and have doubt about them. Because as soon as you plant that seed of doubt, and they're going to pull back their support, and that's when shit falls apart. And that's another theory about what happened with them. They pissed off or ignored the wrong things. They really did. And then if you think about it, when all the pieces of the various Christian texts that they went out, and Christian artifacts they went out to collect too, there's also the thought of the wrath of God being brought upon them as well. And they were feeling the effects of the wrath of God upon them. So I say that with quotation marks around it.
Jumping back to the werewolves, right? Werewolf people, right? What were they actually doing for the Germans during the war? I mean, were they like in the ranks of the soldiers, killing for them, or what were they actually doing?
Actually, they were brought in as they were brought into the war effort, not as foot soldiers. They were brought in as tacticians, as planners, as battle planners. Some of his generals, some of his lieutenants, some of his higher up in his military, they were indeed Vargar. That's where you always get the rumors, and Hollywood took those rumors and those stories of Nazi werewolves, which you'll see in a lot of B Hollywood movies about Nazi werewolves, horror movies.
Yeah.
But there is truth behind that, because they were the stories that were being told, the stories at the end of the war that leaked out of Germany, that American soldiers and other countries that went in to Berlin, they brought out these stories and these tales about Nazi werewolves, about they had members of the Nazi party that could turn into beast people. They came out with those stories, and it just wove itself into our society and our think, and eventually into our culture, and then suddenly you start seeing movies pop up about them. So
it's like that picture. It's like the picture I showed at the start, and I showed you there. It's like this one here was supposedly it was a Russian soldier that said that they came across them, and they were fierce. They killed the whole platoons of men. That's how bad they were.
The Vargars were monsters, in the literal sense of the word. Violent, vicious. Some of you never wanted to meet one in a dark alley. They were fearless. They didn't care how many people were there. They saw themselves at the top of the food chain and the top of the evolutionary chain. Does that sound familiar? It sounds kind of very Nazi-esque, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it sounds very Nazi-esque, but that's how they felt. So I can see that sentiment trickling down and taking root in Hitler's mind and Hitler's soul. If he when and if he ever met any of them and had a conversation with them, because they're openly, if you're forced them to speak to you, they are openly disdainful of you. You are a sheep, and they are the predator. They don't talk to food unless the food has something to offer them. So
it's terrifying, isn't it? Anne, well, you're here, Anne. Would you like to ask Mike any questions? This is your opportunity to meet Mike.
Hey, Mike. I love the show that I came on when you were talking about the zombie stuff.
Oh, yep.
And about Serpent and the Rainbow and a few other things.
I hope you watched the movie. That movie's actually really, really good.
I own it.
I love it. Yeah, it's in my library.
I watched it too.
So I have something to bring up. Going back to the genetic stuff, and so there was, we of course all know about the Nazi genetic tests, but how many people know about Unit 731?
Never heard of it.
Unit 731 was the Japanese counterpart to the Nazi genetic tests.
Did that have to do with the Kitsune infantry they had? I have stories about that.
I'm not sure. I just know
that did not surprise me.
But I just know that there was a deep connection between, the Nazis' genetic testing and this Unit 731, which if I'm remembering right, it was Japanese. But they had little stations like in China, um, yeah, Hong Kong area. Just they had them all over that region. Um, and I came across about the Unit 731 during X Files, to be honest. And Dr. Hiroshima in the show, who was doing genetic testings on humans, with alien DNA. Um, and in a lot of cases, Unit 731 was a lot harsher of a place than the Nazis had.
Well, what I know about the Japanese when it came to experiments, especially on prisoners of war, the Japanese, and they're not the only Asian culture that believes this, but they had their own sense of superiority as well. Their race was the best race that was out there. And what they did with a lot of their prisoners of war, they would experiment on them to find better ways of killing them. They were great innovators and methods and different ways of killing enemy soldiers. So,
but they would do these horrible testings, like stuff that I don't even really want to go into.
do it, dude. I talk about all kinds of shit. Do it.
Just they were doing genetic testing. They would do genetic testings on like inserting certain drugs into food to see what and giving them to the unsuspecting, to see what would happen. A lot of that was I don't even know what kind of chemicals they were working with, but it has to be in the same ballpark as what their Nazi counterparts were doing. But they were always trying to they were more working towards mass infection, how to subdue countries faster than the biological weapons of the time. So that's what I know that they were doing down there, from what I understand and read.
Japanese were masters at finding better ways of killing people. Absolute masters of that. But that was a cultural trend with the Japanese Empire up to that point, before they lost the war and surrendered and had to dismantle their empire and dismantle their military. But when they dismantled their military, and I found this fascinating about the Japanese, they went through so nobody else could get their hands on it. They destroyed so many of their records at the end of the war. The Japanese did. They destroyed it. Unlike the Germans, on the other hand, they kept meticulous notes on everything. They had everything categorized, everything. They broke everything down to numbers, and there were copies upon copies of this. They were amazing bookkeepers, and they were inventory specialists. So all this information just was not in a central place. They had copies of it at different locations throughout Germany and throughout Europe, at different stations and different outposts. The Japanese never did that. Japanese never wanted anything to fall into anybody they considered an enemy's hands. They centralized all their information and all their notes and all their experimental stuff, and most of it was destroyed at the end of the war. So nobody could get their hands on it. So, especially China. They didn't want China to get it because they went through China. They just completely killed, and that's
Oh.
the reason why they're so afraid of China today, because they went through
Yeah.
China and the rape of Nanking. They went through China and they just ripped China a new asshole. And the Chinese have never forgotten it, and the Japanese have never forgotten what they did to China. So they live in constant fear to this day that China is going to come back and get them.
Oh yeah.
The Japanese. This is a gruesome thing about the. I do know this about the Japanese, and Mike, you'll probably agree with me here. The Japanese used to kill the Chinese and feed the Chinese back to the Chinese as food.
Yeah, they were vicious.
Soap
They were
operas of it
vicious.
over there.
They didn't play. They did not. They did not play with the whole prisoner of war thing.
Yeah.
They saw everybody else as the lesser beings compared to them.
Yeah.
They saw what they did as a holy war. Their divine emperor was sending them out to do the work. They were doing the will of God. They were doing the will of their divine emperor, to go out and conquer and spread the Japanese empire even further. So,
Do you think that there was any of the kind of like werewolf type or creatures working with the Japanese? Because that's an actually interesting one, that because the same as Nazis.
the Japanese were a lot worse. Now you have to remember, in Japanese culture and Japanese lore, their history, a lot of their lords and ladies and their noble people, they were, as the stories go, they were known for marrying or breeding with some of this more divine spiritual creatures that lived in their mountains and in their waterways and so forth. And one of them was the fox spirits, which they consider to be a divine race of beings that existed in Japan. And the kitsune were the fox-headed people. They were men and women with the heads of with foxes. They could become actual large spirit foxes at night. During the day, they could assume the appearance of a human being, but they could, at any point, their head could become that of the head of a fox to show who they were. And they would intermingle with these families, with the nobles from the kitsune clans as well, to produce children. And these children would be blessed divine children. And these children actually helped, with the war effort. The descendants of those children were involved in World War II during the conquest. They're the ones who pointed towards China and to invade China. So the story goes.
I'm gonna say I don't believe that the Japanese ever stopped. Like the Unit 731, I don't believe that ever stopped. I believe that that's continuing on today. Now, of course, I have no physical evidence, but I have a lot of substantial evidence to play the case that that's continuing. And I also feel that they are Unit 731 is working with some type of eugenics geneticism.
Andy can answer that one. Dakota.
Awkward silence.
I know it's just a little.
I know, right? It's like,
Maybe the tumbleweed to blow past.
I'm me, I'm a conversation hog, so I was shutting my mouth and let everybody talk. So
Yeah.
nah,
It's I honestly I agree with you, Aaron. I think that they're still doing that. It's probably a lot of US companies and a lot of Chinese companies that are still into the genetics, and we'll keep it at that because of what happened that long ago. There's a lot of genetic stuff going on, right? And I think it's still happening to this day. I think, oh my God, there'll be things that they've done. They say they've never cloned a human. They'll have cloned a human, right?
Think of eugenics experiments in the 70s and the eugenics projects from the 70s that happened in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, where did we get that from? Where did we get those ideas from? The Germans.
I will say this: the Germans were meticulous. I mean, when they knew they were losing, the British, the Americans, the Russians, that they were trying to burn all their records, but they couldn't do it because, as Mike says, there was rooms
There's
full
too
of
much.
files. There was a duplicate, a duplicate, a duplicate, a duplicate,
Mhm.
and it's the same at Auschwitz with the Jews.
Yeah.
They had records on the person that was getting it, and they had like 10 copies for every person that get bloody cremated.
Mhm.
And that's why they couldn't hide the evidence, because there was too much of it. But if it had been the Japanese, it would have
They were
probably
too.
been a
They
wee
were
bit more
too good
difficult.
at their job. They were too good at being at office work. They were just really too good at doing that. So
Yeah, I mean, they're good at building cars. I'll give them that. They are good at building cars and other kind of things. But Dakota, would you like to add anything here?
It's no secret that a lot of experimentation that was initiated and went on during the Second World War is still going to this day. And you can just imagine that maybe it doesn't necessarily have the same funding or same resources allocated to it. But given that there's so much going on behind the scenes, who knows when that button's going to be pushed and all sorts of monstrosities are going to be unleashed.
Exactly. I mean, I think the Nazis they were dabbling in a lot of stuff. I mean, the Nazis were dabbling in genetically modification. They were also dabbling with the werewolves and other kind of creatures. Yeah, Mike, what can you tell us about vampirism in World War II with the Nazis? Because there's a lot of that tied in with the SS and stuff.
were you asking me?
Yes.
Vampires, Mike. Come on.
Vampires, Mike. Vampires, SS.
I should have done a show. I should have done a show about vampires.
Because I know what people think they are. They know what people think they are. I know that the true vampire isn't what a person.
The descendants of Enkidu. Well, that's their official name. Well, those old races. Again, that's another race that fled from the Middle East and settled in the Slavic and northern parts of Germany when they came there, and they went there and they thrived. They were incredibly intelligent, very good at war as always.
Yeah.
Highly advanced as well. But again, they had that thirst for blood that had to be satiated. And the Germans, of course, when they met them, and I should say rediscovered them, because they were living amongst the Germans for quite some time. Again, living with the different other groups, like the Jewish race, like the Jews, like the various parts, the various tribes of gypsies, that these old races found homes there. And when the Germans finally rooted them out, and convinced them to cooperate with them. Pretty much it was cooperate or be exterminated. Now the Vargar, they cooperated willingly because, bloodlust, that's their thing. And Enkidu did not. They fled. They came there to hide. But they contributed to the technology there, to the war technology there. They contribute their strength because their bloodline could make a human much, much stronger, and live much, much longer. And their method of breeding was quite interesting. So,
my God, Mike, you are a north of knowledge, aren't you? I was waiting to say that wrong there. I was going to go all funny again, Dakota, would you like to ask Mike any questions while you're here?
Oh, gods.
Opportunity.
Do you plan on, a touch out of the wood, but if you go to die, are you going to preserve your brain so we can extract your knowledge at a later date?
I know.
Oh, wow.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
I can send you instructions on how to make the same deal that I made. So
there you go. Right, can you send me them tonight, please? Do I have to go? I don't have to go to a crossroads at 3 a.m. there.
If I need church dirt, I live right next door to one.
Church dirt, dude. You got to get something. You got to get something stronger than that. You got to dig up a few graves, boo. So,
all right, I know where to go.
You got to do a little desecration there.
Huh? So, before the end of the show, would you like to ask Mike any more questions? Because this is your opportunity to speak the knowledge himself. I mean, this is like the supercomputer in Star Trek. He knows everything. So ask him anything you want, and he'll be able to answer it.
All right, Mike, are you run by the Whopper?
Am I a what?
Are you ran by the Whopper? So,
Did you just proposition me? I didn't hear all that.
you
Muskets
remember the
at
movie
dawn.
War Games? You remember the movie War Games?
Oh,
The-
that computer Whopper. Yeah, okay, I got you.
Yeah,
Now. I
the
thought
Whopper.
Oh God.
thought you were talking about a dick or something, dude. I'm sorry. Please go
No,
on.
no, no. Are you ran by the Whopper?
Sorry. I thought
Our burger
I
king
really
gets
I
in there.
really did think that was a dick joke. I'm sorry, dude. I'm not trying to be rude, but I really did think you were making a dick joke. So and I was gonna come back with an even better one, but since you're talking about the computer from War Games, and yeah, I've heard of Whopper. I don't think it had a dick.
Yeah, no. Well, it was AI to a certain extent.
Yes, it was.
Oh.
Artificial insemination. What?
That would be AS.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's a great night tonight. Dakota, do you have
Oh,
any
God.
questions you want to ask Mike? Come on.
I think I did,
Something-
but I
come on,
lost
something
it right
tonight.
there.
Come on.
Oh,
Come on.
thanks to
Maybe
computers.
something.
Wow.
Any questions in the chat? You know.
Oh, how about that picture of that knife I sent you too, Chris?
I was showing them
Almost
before.
forgot
Should have
about that.
uploaded it.
It's okay.
He's
You
got to there.
cheeky, lazy
It's-
bastard. Upload
No,
it.
it's all good. It was part of my haunted object collection. So
Can we see it? Can we see that shiny knife?
it's locked up.
Wait a minute.
Oh God, Mike's voice is starting to go again as we're talking about it. Oh shit.
He's turned into a Cylon.
I don't keep stuff like that out for very long, except for to talk about it and put the shit back up.
Right, just give me a minute here. Say 4.
All right.
Talk about something interesting about
Every
Ghost or something.
every
the,
time-
the Third Reich or something.
it seems like every time certain subjects come up with Mike, that the microphone just goes wonky. Like the
You're just
information is
now
not.
noticing?
Because you can make a big experience.
I'm trying to send this picture, but no send for some weird reason.
I'm sorry, Chris, for putting you on the spot. I just remembered it.
It's refusing to send for some weird reason. That's that. I'm telling you, it's Hitler's ghost.
No, are you sure? Are you sure it's not OP?
It was during my investigation days where I would go out with my little tiny team of investigators. We would go out. Well, I would be invited to come out on investigations. We went to a family that was having some really bad things was happening to the family that could not be explained. And the wife had, from her great grandfather at the end of World War II, he had brought this knife back with him. He was one of the part of the group that went into Berlin at the time. And he brought this a lot of soldiers brought back souvenirs from that time. And he brought back an SS paratrooper's knife with him. And it's a really fascinating knife. The way it opens up, it's a piece of German ingenuity that just opens smoothly and beautifully. And of course, it has all kinds of delightful things on it, Nazi-wise, including swastikas on the serial numbers and everything else. Because everything, the equipment that the Nazis used, the infantry used, everything had a serial number, was cataloged. As we were talking about earlier, they cataloged and serialized everything to keep track of it. Well, he brought that knife back. He didn't live much longer once he came back to the States. Yeah, he died pretty soon after he came back. And I think he died, I think he fell off of something and broke his neck from what she said. I remember what she said. It was a bad death. It was an accidental death. And that knife passed along through several family members before it finally came to her. There it is, before it finally came to her. But everybody who had owned it for any
There we
certain
go.
amount of time had bad luck. And when I say bad luck, I mean like badly bad luck. They'd get hit by cars, they'd be in terrible accidents. They'd have children that would drown in the bathtub. That knife always brought in. She blamed it on the knife. She said it didn't start happening until that knife came into the household, all the bad stuff that was happening to her family. And she asked us to take it from them and do something with it. So who ends up with it but me? And I sealed it away. If anything negative was about it, and it does have, it is very eerie, especially when you open it up and get the blade to come out on it. It's absolutely eerie. It just gives you, there's something wrong about it. Okay, there's something about it that's wrong. The way it feels, the way its presence is something. There's something attached to it that just gives off some really bad, wrong vibes. So I keep it, and
it does look weird.
Kind
There is something weird about it. I don't know. It wouldn't let me download the other one for some weird reason. It kept glitching out.
The other thing that reminds me of is a Divic box, which was another thing from during World War II.
You're going to make me say it, aren't you? There's no such thing as a Divic box. I don't care what. I don't care what Zach Bagan said.
No. The Divic box. That was long before Zach Bagan's came out.
Oh no, that's the word hokey came into play with Jews, and it surrounded especially people who God, I can't think of the word when I want to use the word. Jewish mystics. I can't pull it out of my ass. Kabbalah. That was a tool used to make money and to bring a certain amount of status and fear to the community, much like the golem was as well. The golem, on the other hand, is real. So,
I'm surprised the Nazis didn't try and build a golem.
Well, they did try to build. They did try to build metal men. They did try to build metal men, but they just couldn't pull all the secrets together to put it together. So they try to do their own Frankenstein in their own way. So,
can you imagine a regiment of golems, Nazi ones?
That would have been terrible. That's one of the things they got when they were getting desperate. Is when they started injecting Beastman blood into their soldiers, when they started trying to make improvements on their soldiers, both chemically, physically, mentally, and spiritually to them. And they did horrible stuff to these people. And the very few that survived and had children afterwards, they carried what the Nazis did with them throughout their offspring and their progeny. And those twisted people still exist in our society. That were products of Nazi experimentation. So,
well, that's what's happening to the world we're in now. I mean, the world we're in now. Look what's happening to the world we're in now. It's these people are still in control, and I think we're heading for another war. And what will happen in that war will be worse. Because of nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons
but it's in the spiritual world. It's considered in the spiritual and preternatural world, not the supernatural world or the paranormal world. Most of the things, entities, and non-human spirits out there see that coming as well, but they see it as a great reset for themselves. You've heard me talk about the end of the Age of Reason. We're at that now, and they're actually encouraging the end of it, because at the end of the Age of Reason, they can come out again. They can come out and play again, like they used to.
Yeah. Well, there'll be not that much left, but But somewhere holed up, Mike will be in his bunker, you know, ready to come out with his net to catch them, you know.
I just
So
have a
would-
root cellar.
So Dakota, would you like to add anything, Dakota, before we
Just
head off?
this. I'm just gonna say, I'm agreeing with Knowledge Within. This has probably been one of our best shows yet.
Yeah, that has been. Thank you very much, Knowledge Within. Thank you very much. Mike is an amazing person, and if anybody's watching this or listening back in the podcast, please go to Mike the Naked Bigfoot's video on YouTube, and please watch. What was that show you did? That was the Manor. It was, what was his name again? Oh, that was brilliant, about the two guys, about how they were murdered in their house, and
Corpsewood Manor.
Corpsewood.
Yeah, that was Dr.
what-
Scudder and Mr. Odom.
what a name for a house. I mean, imagine naming your house Corpsewood
Well,
Manor.
you know, they had a road that led back over to where that led around their property. You know what they named the road? Because they found a dead black horse on the road that led between these two huge stones. They called it Dead Horse Road. I mean, this couple, you have to remember, they were very into the occult as well, but they were
Yes.
not. But they were not dangerous people. They didn't do terrible things. It was mostly academic sense with the occult. But they named everything stuff like that. So
Wow.
if y'all get a chance to go there, the place is still there.
One other question for you, Mike. How is your hand after your ceremony?
My finger is bruised, and where I dislocated it, and my blisters popped, and it hurts like a motherfucker. I mean, like a mother, and it. But it'll heal eventually. So.
See, the thing is about that. You says you're going to feel extreme paranoia, and something's watching you, and you'll have dreams of you. Well, I only caught the first 15 minutes. I missed 15 minutes yet, so I've no had the extreme paranoia. I've just had dreams of you.
Oh God.
I've had a lot of messages since then going, you're right. They said it's like smoking some really good weed is what they're going through right now. It's a sense of paranoia. I went, well, I'm sorry. My bad.
That's the thing with me. I'm always paranoid, so it's coming at me, and I don't notice it.
The number of times I've seen this man's his pupils dilated, that doesn't fucking surprise me.
That's because of other things, you know. That's because of other things, but that's life. That's life. Look at Aaron. Aaron, let's talk about Aaron. Aaron, is your pupils
Well, he does live in Portland. So.
Oh God.
He lives where? Where do you live there?
Portland. I'm a Portlander, Pacific Northwesterner.
I'm sorry to hear that, my friend.
I love it here. I gotta admit.
May your people be liberated one day.
Right.
May your people rise up and liberate themselves one day.
I'm coming for Scotland, so what's so bad about Portland? Is it what's Portland like? What is it? It's a bit of the United States, obviously.
Just Google Portland.
I think it's actually really wonderful here. And not a dull day goes by in Portland. We always got some kind of action happening.
There's a wonderful TV show that was on called Portlandia, which Portland, because I spent some time in Portland. I don't think I'm allowed back in Portland after that time, but the series Portlandia actually is not that big of a stretch as what actually happens there in Portland.
I can see it in hundreds of years from now, coming to a museum in Portland soon. Mike the Naked Bigfoot's brain.
There's pretty much wanted posters in all the post offices, so and at a few churches too.
So before we go off, Mike, what's your next show this week coming? What you getting?
I really haven't. I'll be honest with you. I really haven't freaking thought about it. There's so much I could pull out of my ass and talk about it.
Clearly, that's why we have you on so much.
Yeah.
If all else fails, I'll just probably do a review of Dragon Ball Z or something. I don't know.
Dragon Ball.
All right.
I said that because I'm looking at my collection of anime on the wall over here. So
Oh
And,
my god, I didn't know you were into that. Learn
I
something
love
every
that.
day.
Learned something new.
I love Japanese anime and manga. Big, huge fan. I've got some really obscure Japanese anime
Mm,
that I
bet you
absolutely
have.
Can't
love.
show your hentai collection.
Mm.
See, I've never got into that. I like some of the more supernatural stuff, like Shiki. Shiki is one of the best underrated Japanese anime out there. Is Shiki, and if you want to get a little bit about the culture, about the spiritual culture of Japan, you should watch Shiki.
I've just learned a new
I-
thing
You're not
about
wrong,
Night
you're not
Naked
wrong.
Bigfoot.
I
I
love
always
Shiki.
liked
Yes,
Evangelion. I've
Really?
always liked Evangelion. Yeah.
The only thing I
Was it-
liked about was the opening song, "A Cruel Angel's Thesis." I really got into that. I loved anime that did openings and music that had absolutely nothing to do with the series. It was so much fun to watch because you're looking at it going, okay, this is going to be really fun. And then next thing you know, you're watching an anime where somebody's getting their guts ripped out or something. I mean, you're like, but the opening was so cheerful and happy, like Neon Genesis. The opening to that was okay. It just had a bunch of weird images on it, but a really nice song that went with it. And it's like, oh God, this is psychological and nuts. Get in the Ava.
Sounds like most of Japanese programming.
What's that there from the knowledge within? There you go, Dakota. There's one for you.
You're bringing up porno? Really, Chris?
What Japanese
I'm in
porno?
knowledge within. It's the
Some of
knowledge
the things that
within.
I've heard of you busting. My God.
Oh, here's my
it's
other big
knowledge within, that's
recommendation.
not,
Watch Witch Hunter Robin. That is amazing to watch too.
I've heard of that.
It's a slow burn, but it's a lot of fun to watch. Shiki and Witch Hunter Robin. There, I said it.
Oh, what's this? What's that about? Like, is it a witch hunter or something?
Witch Hunter Robin is really will blow your mind when you watch it. It's really dark and moody, and the witches in that are freaking amazing. Robin, who's the main character, I mean, if she doesn't have her glasses on, she'll burn your dick off by mistake. I mean, she's absolutely. It's a really fun show to watch. You got to make her wear her glasses. Come to find out, because if she's not wearing her glasses, she will burn something off of you.
There you go, Dakota.
See
That's for
what
you
else is
tonight.
over there.
Will you be having any bad dreams tonight? So, Dakota, who have we got on tomorrow night? That'd be an interesting show.
Well-
we could get Mike
Well,
to
I've
interview.
never dealt with the guy before, so I don't know. You know, I was like, you.
Hey,
you
we've got a
gay
comedian.
wanks.
Yeah.
You gay wanks are gonna know.
Did you hear that, Lewis? He's calling us UK people names. I think that's terrible. What do
Yeah,
think
you
of
bunch
that?
of wankers.
No.
That's terrible. That's right. It's Chris Stoughton, a Bald Bonkers. Is a comedian, so he's coming on tomorrow, guys. Mike, do you have any like potions of that? I could maybe like put like something on him. You know, any recipes or anything? Get me.
Something for me to
Yeah.
grow back my hair.
I just have
Aye,
a lot
aye.
of hallucinogenics in my collection right now. So.
That'll do. A couple of bits of some of them. We could
God,
dip it
my
with-
wife
get some-
my wife put her Sailor Moon collection over there with my shit. I just noticed
Hey,
it.
don't be hating on Sailor Moon.
Now this is the original Japanese Sailor Moon, where her name is not
Oh.
Serena but Usagi, which is her
Usagi.
real fucking name.
Yeah.
But she owns everything ever done by Sailor Moon. And when we have anime Thursdays,
No.
we rotate.
Sailor
One
Moon
week I
DVDs.
get to pick the anime, the next week she picks hers, and it's always.
I've never watched
like,
anime. I've never watched anime whatsoever.
There's so much girl anime out there that blows ass, like Honey and Clover and shit like that. And I can't. She always picks that stuff, and I just sit there
Nazis to anime.
and quietly
I
watch.
know.
it.
We've went for werewolves.
You know why? Because there's Nazis in Hellsing Ultimate. That's why.
That's right.
There's Nazis in Hellsing Ultimate there. I mean, the Third Reich, the Millennium Group, are the leftovers at the end of World War II, and it's about Nazi vampires.
Yep.
I thought, God. So,
Forgot
ladies and
about that.
gentlemen,
Hellsing
Ladies and-
Ultimate. I just remember that too. Hellsing Ultimate. This is one of my favorite animes ever. Hellsing Ultimate is a
there
Nazi
we go. We bridged it.
vampires. I know. I need to shut up, but I can't.
ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more of this amazing stuff from Mike, go to his channel, give him a subscribe, and Dakota's just changed my name. Honestly, see, that's what I'm dealing with, Mike. That's that, Mike. I need a simple recipe that I can turn him into like a mushroom for a week or something like that. You know,
Wow. I got something where it will piss
Change
funky
that back.
smells and stuff.
I'll do. That's terrible. I'm just keeping it there. You know, this is what I've got to work with. Professionals in this field. Disgraceful.
Wow.
Honestly, Mike, thank you for joining us tonight. And Aaron, we'll talk to you behind the scenes when we finish this. So everybody for coming, thank you for coming. This will be uploaded, obviously, again. Our advertising company will be putting it out there, so hopefully I'll get loads of views. So catch you all later. See you all tomorrow night, and talk to you behind the scenes, Mike.
Yeah, good thing we go out to like 60 plus locations, so they can't take us all down.
Ah, that's true. That's true.
You'll be surprised.
Yay! Let's go.
Coming up to Pornhub, Bald and Bonkers. Bye. Hey everybody, this is Dakota from Bald and Bonkers. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening in. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, whatever it takes to help get this show out. We broadcast to over 60 plus destinations with several more on the way. Be sure to keep those eyes glued to us close because we have a lot of amazing excitements coming up this October to celebrate the very first anniversary of the Bald and Bonkers Network. See you next